Detective Comics 1035, Mariko Tamaki and Dan Mora on the art. On the main story, anyway. And this is continuing. You remember we had the murder of one of the rich wives in the fancy neighborhood with the guy who works for the mayor. I want to say Nick. Remember right? Being the culprit. So this issue goes full on detective though, like properly. Like this whole thing is Bruce narrating as he's talking about how the police are reacting to this, how the mayor's reacting to this, how he's like searching for the victim, which leads to a fantastic scene I thought where he finds the body in the sewer, and it's too late. She's already dead, and that's kind of it's what he said earlier on. He's like, someone disappears in Gotham's, the chances are they're not coming home.
Yeah, it's never good. No, just this whole scene was giving me like detective movie vibes.
Yeah.
Like when they find the body, but it's too grotesque to show, so you only get like a little snippet, and you could tell from Bruce's body language, like it's not good.
Yeah, because it's very stern. Because Bruce has his narration voice is very cold and very matter of fact. But when he gets to finding the body, he says something along the lines of, I'm not on the page, but I'm so sorry. It becomes more personal. It affects him. So now all this stuff was great, and him sort of like tracking it to the sewer system, going around with his flashlight, all that.
Mora's really good with action. Because this whole sequence when the police show up, it's almost as if someone set it up to make it look like Batman's responsible. Right, because the police just find him standing over a dead body. Yeah, and they're already with Nakano's anti-mask, whole thing.
It is happenstance, I think, but it is like this. It plays into the whole anti-vigilante sentiment that's going on quite well. But I love that Batman points out that like it would normally take like another week for the police to even find this. Like, it's not super hard to find, but they're clearly pulling out all the stops and treating this as a big deal because her father is one of the richest men in Gotham, and he's like demanding action. So the mayor's like doing everything he can for him and putting everyone on this. But you're right, we get this action sequence where they're chasing Batman through the sewer. Yep. And there's a great moment where a bullet that the police fire ricochets and hits one of the cops in the shoulder. And in the next page, we hear the conversation as someone's explaining to the mayor, what went down. Oh, the Batman got away, blah blah. But it mentions that one of the officers got injured in a chase, and the mayor says, "By Batman," and the guy just says, "That is the report, sir." And we just saw their own bullet ricochet and hit themselves.
So, right, this is turning Batman into a public menace again. Because for a long time, it was Batman was working with the police, so them setting this up that it's antagonistic again, I think is a nice change up. Because we go through these cycles where when Gordon's in charge, they're friendly to Batman, but even in Gotham Central, you got the vibe that not all of the cops are comfortable with that, but they just do it because they trust Gordon. And then there's other cycles where he's an enemy of the police, and they're trying to catch him as much as they're trying to catch the Joker and stuff. And I feel this rides that line really well. Because we know that Montoya, right? She's kind of in charge right now.
But yeah, she's very reluctant. Yeah, she's very reluctant with Nakano's orders, but she is the one who's commissioner. Yeah. Right.
So, with that being in play, I feel like it'll be a riding that line, because she knows Batman's motivation. She knows he doesn't shoot at cops. So we'll see how this all plays out.
Yeah, so there's a big funeral takes place, and her father, doesn't give a eulogy. He's like demanding justice, and he's angry. He's it's like Kraven the Hunter put on like a fancy coat. Like that's really the vibe that I get from him. I love that Penguin's in the audience as well. Like, everyone's shown up to this funeral that doesn't have a body because of forensics still being done. Although Batman notes very quickly in the next couple of pages that a rushed order to like fill up that old sewer system, at least that section of it with concrete, was put through, and no one's worked the crime scene. So all the evidence, someone has cared about putting this. Now it could just be the culprit. Like, I don't know if he has the power to put that order in himself, working at the mayor's office. So maybe there'll be more to that as we get more issues. But yeah, and the husband, because this was the husband who he's like the one who has the startups every year and
Yep.
Was kind of a kept husband. He's got a gun. He's out wandering. Batman confronts him and disarms him, and throws him into the. He doesn't personally throw him into the jail cell, but we find out that he left him off at the police station, so that he'd be safe, because there's very few places that are safe. The murderer, who we see, and I think that's one of the things I love about this story so far, is that cliffhanger where we saw him with blood all over his hands. It felt very dark, but comics have this way of like flipping things when you come to the next issue, where it's not quite as bad as it seemed. But this issue is like, no, it's exactly as bad, if not worse, than you thought. That cliffhanger implied. There's no get out clause of it, I suppose, is what I'm saying. But he's high tense. He's trying to take his pills. Mayor's sending him home. All this stuff. We see a moment where he like buckles, and I guess we get like a visualization of what it's like in his head as he collapses.
Yeah, it's a lot of like spore kind of stuff. Like fungal vibes, which tends to make me think of one of the more, plant-based villains. But we know what's going on with Ivy in over in Catwoman, so that kind of rules her out. But unless it's someone new, or
it does feel like we're building to a reveal of like who the villain, who is responsible for what's going on is. I mean, don't get me wrong, this guy is still a murderer, but there's definitely
something more going on.
Yeah, there's definitely something else to it though, where he's infected with something, and then obviously the ending adds a lot to it, where there's something kind of supernatural or science fiction-y going on here now. But I love how it plays out in this issue though, and the art style on this page where we see inside his head, it does a good job of being completely different in style to everything else. Every other page does not look like this. There's a consistent style throughout the whole thing. There's no, for the most part, there's no wacky angles on the the panels or anything like that. The action has a little bit of it, of course, but it's very boxy in a very consistent way, and the pacing's really good in the art. But that one page where we see inside his head when he collapses and he's having this like migraine, it's like no, now we're going kind of fantastical and otherworldly because we're inside his head. I don't know, it's just good at being distinct.
There's nothing like it in the rest of the issue. Even
the colors.
Even when it because even when it gets cartoony with her dad, he looks like this big hulking guy.
Yeah.
And like some of to show emphasis, some of his words are colored red and stuff. It's still pretty in line with the rest of the book. And then you get to this page and you get, wonky angles on some of the stuff and that red and green, which that's what made me think of like the, back in the Snyder Swamp Thing and Lemire Animal Man, we had the red and the green fighting, it was giving me vibes of that because you'd get a lot of these pages. Who did the art in Swamp Thing at the beginning?
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Testing my memory here.
They would do angles and stuff like this. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't.
Yeah. So we get an example. It's funny because the backup's Huntress, so I guess this is a neat way to just establish she's around. But Huntress saves someone who's on her phone talking to her mum about, well, I know it's not safe to be out at night, but I kind of need to go do stuff. And Huntress sort of swoops in and saves her. So there's one page setting that up. So I don't know if that means Huntress is going to pop up a bit more prominently in the main story later on. And this is just established for that. But as Batman's coming home, as Bruce is coming home, his narration's interrupted. He says something about the whole thing feels strange, but he kind of pauses in the middle when he notices something, and we see like a figure over by the streetlight in silhouette. And the final page, seemingly, is the murdered woman walking like a zombie towards him. And like even just the face, the way her mouth is, it's very classic traditional zombie. And what seems to be a moan coming from her is like, I mean, part of me thinks she's trying to say a specific word, but there's nothing I can think of. But... So
looking back at the pages and stuff, I'm wondering if we're getting, so there's the guy that works for the mayor named Hugh.
Yeah.
And the way that he's drawn, I don't know, he's always seems to be in the focus with Nakano.
And it's worth mentioning the relationship between those three specifically is that the mayor's constantly yelling at Murder Man, but Neil, I said Nick earlier, it's Neil. That was close. Anyway, but he seems to favor Hugh, where Hugh's kind of like, oh, you're always a lifesaver, Hugh. You do the press releases. You don't suggest the stupid ideas. I mean,
right?
If Hugh turns out to be the real villain, who's like making his colleague going crazy to the point where he's murdered someone, I mean, that could be a potential motivation.
Yeah, I'm just looking at him because he's the one that goes to Neil, right? And I'm just wondering too, because he has bugs on his computer, right? This is a bit of a jump, but back in one of the Justice League Darks, I can't remember if it was Tynan or Ram, but there was this one where this fungus had gotten into some of the people, and it's based off of a real life one that makes it gets involved into ants, and it basically takes control of them, makes them go to the highest point and jump off, and then that's how it helps spread the fungus. And I feel like the fact like it's bringing this lady back, right? She's like a zombie type creature. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of his thing. It's like this is how he's spreading it through like this death and mayhem kind of deal. But there's just something not right going through this the second time now that I didn't notice him until we were talking about it. Like kind of always being in the frame with the mayor.
Like he's always in his ear. He's kind of secretly running the show a little bit by just
kind of along those lines. Almost like he's it's that fungus that takes control of the ant and makes them do things.
I mean, it's made a point of like creating a name for this character and having him be around in the scenes in both issues. So it's very intentional. He's supposed to be a named character for a reason.
Yeah.
So you could be onto something there. I mean, I don't know anything about this villain from Justice League Dark, admittedly, but
well, it wasn't so much a villain; it was a concept because all of them were out of balance. All of the red and the green and the gray and all of the stuff, and it started affecting people, and it was making them go up to the highest point and jump off of things. And so they had to contact Animal Man, and through shenanigans, get into there and talk them down. And it was really good, but I can't remember if it was Tynan or Ram V, because that was where it was jumping kind of back and forth. Like Tynan was doing other things, and Ram V was, writing based off of plots and all that other stuff. It
would definitely be interesting if Tamaki's first story in Detective takes from something that was set up in Justice League Dark. I'm not expecting it to. I do think it's a bit of a reach, but
I don't think it's that exactly. Just it reminded me of that, just because with the way that was, with how they took over and the people were like zombies, with whatever this green and red page is supposed to represent, right? Because to me it looks like spores of some kind. So that's all. Like, I don't think it'll tie back into any of that type of stuff. But it's similar enough that it made my brain, especially with he had an ant sticker on his computer, and it more kind of, not that he draws attention to it, right? But you look at the top of that page, and it's very, it draws your eye to it, right? When he's talking about the headache, and he's sitting right next to Neil and stuff. So. But I didn't notice that. I just thought, I wanted to point out, I didn't notice that the first time I read it through. This is one I didn't have time to go back and revisit. So seeing that.
It's an important detail because unlike, say, other mediums, like the choice had to be made to put that there. That is not an accident that there's an ant sticker or whatever on his laptop. So, yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a good thing to catch. This could just be a completely new character with a new, villainy. If even as this guy, this might be a hint to something else rather than
this could be a red herring.
Yeah,
that's put there to throw us off completely. But yeah, I was not expecting zombies.
No, I think what's impressive is that if you told me before I read this that it's going to end with the murdered, like the woman's going to turn to be killed and she's going to come back at the end as a zombie, I'd have probably rolled my eyes and thought, that sounds a bit lame. But actually reading the issue, I think the way it builds up to finding the body is all so well done. The actual sort of, like, the almost David Fincher-esque kind of looking for the body feels really great. The art's gorgeous. And then the actual ending, though, because it's treated like a proper horror movie where you get the silhouette, it's very Exorcist almost, the visual, and then the actual full-on zombie sort of horror comic at that last page of her coming towards him, with the just the red behind him and the scratchy lines. It even says next, what died didn't stay dead. Like I was like, oh, this is getting pulpy horror, and I don't know if I was expected to go in that direction, but I like it. So I'm not
Definitely.
complaining. So it did a good job of being enjoyable for what it was, but then turning it into something else and making me go, "Oh, that's an interesting direction. Let's see what they go with this." So
yeah, totally. Really enjoying Detective.
it's good.
Again, Moore's art is just, it really is up there. Every month when this comes out,
Yep.
It's just, I look forward to it, and the action scenes, particular in this one, I mean, in the sewer, were really good.
I'm so used to one of Detective or Batman being a good book and the other one being fairly skippable, and it's actually it feels really oddly great that both are firing really well right now, and they're both so different, but they're both doing really well at what they're doing. So that's really good. And it's nice that Superman's also kind of in the same situation right now, but but we'll yeah. So that's the main story. What you given the book?
I'm giving this one in for the main story an 8.5.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page, 8.5. So, but there's a backup, which I did read. It is Tamaki again writing, this time with Clayton Henry on art. Therefore, even I thought Huntress having long hair
would help the long head problem.
Would help the head problem. That first panel, her head looks so weird. Like, why can't he draw heads properly? Why are these heads so weird looking?
If you just do the rough guesstimate where you take your fingers and measure the head and then put it over her torso.
Yes.
Her head is about 3/4 of her torso, which are normal human proportions. I just want to point out.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as bad in every panel, but that first one, it did not start off on a good impression. I'll just say that.
He's really good when he draws from angles. Head, like, straight on, it always gets a little what's the word I'm looking for? We were looking at it from I can't talk today. It's not disoriented. It's something along those lines. But yeah, it kind of throws you off.
Yeah, distorted? Is that what you're trying to say?
There you go. Thank you. Jeez. Distorted. There we go.
Detective.
Got it. Teamwork makes the dream work.
So this story, we start off with a sort of tease of what's to come, where Huntress is talking about how she doesn't really have any friends. She's never really had friends in the traditional sense, and there's a cat next to her. And then it cuts back to 3 months ago, and it's basically a story of how she helped someone who was being mugged. And the woman being mugged, named Mary, she's very opinionated and won't give up her phone to the mugger. But then she's very opinionated in everything else. She talks back when Huntress tries to tell her what to do to be safe. And it becomes this trend. The story is that Huntress kind of keeps coming back and meeting her again and again. She saves her cat at one point, and she talks about how Mary would just talk about inane subjects that were really kind of annoying and boring, but she kept coming back because she talked to her. And then one day she just didn't show up, and she goes back to where she lives, and Mary's outside her apartment with bruises, and she's been abused inside. And it points out that Huntress basically didn't know what to say. And it became clear the reason why she was always outside is because she preferred to try and stay away from where she lived. This was her feeling more safe outside than inside. So she even walks a cat with a leash as a way to get away. And then she stopped showing up at all, and Huntress becomes concerned. Eventually sees her cat with some blood on its tail, and it becomes clear that her boyfriend or husband, I don't know if they specified which, but has killed her. She finds the body, finds the phone. I thought that was a really nice symbolic part of storytelling, is that this all started over her not giving up her phone, and she finds her dead body and her phone's in her hand, and she uses this to sort of say, okay, she died. That was almost the day she came to see her after the last time she spoke to her, where she died. So the end of this first part of the story is that she's given the cat a place to stay. She's given the cat her couch, which is purple, because of course it is, because we have to colour match with our hero.
Right.
But it's her vowing to find out who's responsible and look for a killer. I thought it was a solid backup. I think Clayton Henry's weird heads is probably the biggest problem I have with the story.
Yeah, but as from different angles. So like the one page where it's about halfway through where Mary talks about she's having a panic attack. Everything on that page looks pretty well in proportion. Even where we're looking straight on at Helena. It's well, so I don't know what's up with his style, right? Like,
yeah.
But I mean, the rest of it's pretty okay. But yeah, I mean, it's Clayton Henry art. It's gonna be decent.
Yeah.
So, but I do like the vibe of this Huntress because it does kind of. She is a bit more awkward than normal, which, I like Huntress as a character, but sometimes it's hard to define her because she sometimes just comes off as female Batman, right? Where she's kind of tough.
Female Jason Todd may be a better.
So sometimes, but whereas I would never call Batwoman Kate. She's not female Batman, right? She's not that brooding, type. Where I feel like Helena really, she gets that brooding, leave me alone vibe more. And here it comes off more awkward, which I know you're not going to want to hear this, but in her version from Birds of Prey, the Harley Quinn.
I mean, I would necessarily dislike that as a character trait. I had no problem because this gave her something where she actually grew attached to someone, and it kind of further solidified why she doesn't have friends because they all seem to end up getting hurt or killed.
Yeah.
And it's so we have this revenge story, but there's enough of a heart here. I think the realization that she's always outside because she's scared to go home, I think was a good story development, and it was one where. As soon as it wasn't about punching someone, Huntress didn't know what to do. Huntress didn't know, okay, she could have went inside and punched the guy, sure, but she didn't know what advice to give, because what she should have said is you shouldn't be staying there, you should move on, you should get away, you should, whatever advice you're supposed to give in that situation, and she wasn't able to, and she feels guilty about that. I think I like the idea that the guilt that Huntress has in this story is not that she didn't make it in time to punch someone in the face or jump off a building. It wasn't that she couldn't be good enough in an action scene. It's actually a simple human interaction that she choked on, that many of us do. It makes it far more relatable in so many ways.
It's like Gotham, reminding her it's Gotham, so you can do what you want, but sometimes you can't escape it. So, and that's tragic. And, the fact that the cat leads her there too, because the whole cat's the whole reason that she meets this lady, well, not meets her, but befriends her.
Befriends, yeah. So, solid backup. I was happy to read it. And I think because Huntress is teased in the main story, it maybe tells me as well, okay, so Huntress is going to show up later in the main arc, and this backup is a nice kind of Tamaki saying, hey, I'm going to do a little Huntress story to sort of set up who my Huntress is and give her some depth. I think that's a fine idea. I would love if the backups in the books were written by the same writer, but they were maybe a side material to the main story.
Yeah, they feel like smaller pieces of, so this, not necessarily the Mary story, but her whole development here with not getting close to people and whatnot might come into play.
Little pieces of the mythology in the world around whatever the main book is. So, in Batman, for example, Tynion could do maybe a little Harley mini story or something. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what he's doing with Ghostmaker right now.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. He's about to start doing exactly that. So yeah. Honestly, solid backup. What are you giving the backup story?
I'm gonna give it a 7.5. I mean, because it is good, but some of the Clayton Henry stuff does stick out.
I'm giving it a 7. I think the story's solid, but those Clayton Henry heads are enough to give it a bit of a hit.